Hi folks, welcome to ScholarBot Tarot. Just call me Mayfield, and thanks a ton for stopping by the study space. Today I wanted to do another hashtag. It is all about Tarot 2022 that was started by Simon of the Hermit's Cave. This hashtag is also fairly new as the previous one that I had done. It started in early August 2022, and I'm actually getting a late start in late August as of recording this. Since there's a lot of ground to cover, we're honestly just going to go ahead and get started. I have the prompts, I have a couple decks that I wanted to show you, so let's go ahead and begin with prompt number 1. Prompt number 1 is your first deck and how you encountered it. And the first deck for me is the Beautiful Creatures Tarot. This is a first edition by J.R. Rivera, artwork, of course, by Jasmine Beggett-Grith. Here are a couple of the cards. This one, I encountered it because it was actually gifted to me. At the time, I was working at Starbucks, and it was during my grad program. I went to a conference in like San Diego or something from the Pop Culture Association. And typically, I'm in the game studies area, but I was just going around the conference, checking out what other panels that they had. And lo and behold, they actually did have like a little occult section, which I thought was very interesting. And I've always kind of been interested in the occult. I had even done like a few papers in grad school and in my undergrad on just general occultism, just surface level stuff. So I attended a panel, and unfortunately I don't remember the content of the panel, but I do remember that they had like some discussions on tarot and stuff like that, and I was just super into that. And when I had gone back home and talked about my experience with my shift supervisor at the time at Starbucks, she was, listening intently and stuff like that, and I was just rambling forever, and I didn't really think anything of it. The next week, she texts me and says, "Why don't you come by the cafe? I have something for you." And so I'm like, okay, cool, I'm not doing anything. If anything, I was probably reading at the time because I think I was prepping for my comp exams, and I did do a lot of cafe hopping, so this wasn't out of the way. So I stopped by the store, and she gives me this deck. And she's like, "Here you go. You can have this. I have like a ton of them." So I get a sneaking suspicion she was also probably a tarot collector. But I'm like, oh, cool. And I was just so enamored with the art. And when I went home and just kind of tore into it, I was looking through the cards, and I don't know, it was just not quite love at first sight, but I was looking through the guidebook and remember just how on brand this was for me, at least for a starter deck. And I noticed that there were just so many things in this deck that was just a culmination of all of my interests, from, religion to folk tales to even Alice in Wonderland. I was never a huge Alice in Wonderland fan, but there are a couple Alice drawings in here, and I mean, I do like that sort of whimsical type narratives. So this was honestly a really fun way to start my journey in tarot. It was a little confusing because in this edition, again, this is the first edition. Let me see if I can find it. The court cards are a little bit, I won't call it unorthodox because I don't think I know any better, but instead of like the traditional court cards that you would find in like the Rider-Waite, all of the court cards are based off of, most of the court cards are based off of astrology. And I'm surprisingly not very well versed in astrology. And all of the pages are nymphs instead of pages, because, she ran out of astrology. And I forgot to mention this, but each of the suits are based off of the elements. So this was a weird way to start my tarot journey, but I think it was a good way to start it. Second prompt is my last deck, so my most recent deck that's come into my collection, and how my tastes have changed since my first deck. And so the recent deck that I've gotten into my collection is the Landback Tarot by Auntie K. Full disclosure, I did purchase this secondhand. I actually purchased it from Sparkle Divine Tarot, and I'm super glad I was able to get this deck into my collection because I did miss out on the Kickstarter. And I mean, this sort of bleeds into like how my tastes have changed, because this is very different from the deck that I just showed you. I really do like, I think I've realized that, yes, I love like good world building and a tarot deck with a thesis or an argument or something that it wants to say, and this is absolutely one of those decks that does that. I'm also recognizing that it doesn't quite matter the way that it's given to me. And what I pretty much am trying to say that my taste in art is very dynamic. I've come to recognize that I like all types of art, like a bunch of different kinds. Like, I'm also one of those people that insists that collage art isn't my favorite. And while that's true to a certain extent, I have like 3 different decks that are collage decks, and I actually enjoy working with them. The art here, like when I first saw the Kickstarter, like I just wasn't totally into it, because I'm sure, as maybe some of you might be thinking, it looks like a 5-year-old drew it, but that's actually not. I mean, number one, that's not literally true, and number two, like there is actually a technique in being able to do this, because the whole point of art that looks like this is for it to connect to not only that inner child, but it's supposed to, like, this is a deck that I can actually read intuitively, and I normally can't do that very well. And I want to really appreciate and, express my gratitude for this deck being in my life now. I do wish that I would have supported the artist when I could, but at least I know that this went to a good cause still. This deck is made by an Indigenous person and depicts the plight of Indigenous people, and just like the general day-to-day lives that they live. It's a very like casual deck, not unlike the Grandma Baby's Black Gold Lenormand. That one also depicted African American life in like the Jim Crow South. Like, there are some really awful things in that are depicted in that deck, but there are also some very just casual things that are happening too, like a woman going to the store, and everything that could represent from someone who now lives in contemporary America. Furthermore, I also want to just express how wonderful it is for this deck to show such serious matters and really synchronize with that simplicity of the way that the art is, that really hones in like the message that it wants to convey. And I just think that's absolutely wonderful. Third prompt, why tarot? I don't know. If I'm being honest, I was really thinking about this prompt, and my brain goes into like 5 different directions. But I guess if I wanted to start somewhere, just to like info dump on you guys, I mean, art is definitely a huge factor. I do genuinely enjoy just kind of being able to hold a deck, whether it be linen cardstock or, matte cardstock with that rose gold finish. I do like being able to hold and shuffle decks. I would also say that it's not unlike art it does feel sometimes that, especially with like an indie deck, that I'm looking into just the experience of someone else. And that's always like a very intimate thing that's happening that I can really enjoy diving into. Prompt number 4, tarot pet peeves. There are two answers that I have for this one. One is on content and the other is on like production. So the one on production, double borders. I I just can't with double borders. If this is more prevalent in like those old Lo Scarabeo decks, I would show them to you, but I think I chopped most of them off and I don't want to platform the Dragon's Tarot again. But yeah, if I see that your deck has double borders, I'm just gonna assume something went horribly wrong in your just in the production phase, and yeah, that you won't be able to change my mind on that. With regards to content, I would probably say being disingenuous with like diversity. This is more prevalent in mass market decks. This happens sometimes in indie decks, but I feel like it's rare and it's usually resolved. It's one of those like very like show don't tell. Sparkle Divine Tarot actually has a wonderful video on it. I'll make sure I link it in the description because that is like her thoughts are basically like my thoughts on that, and I highly recommend you take a look at that. But yeah, that would be my pet peeve in regards to content in tarot. Prompt number 5, favorite tarot spreads. I can't really place a favorite, but I will say that my favorite tends to be almost anything that's posted by the Tarot Diagnosis on Instagram. Any of their spreads that are like 2-3 cards long, I absolutely love those. And I'll make sure that I link their Instagram in the description as well, because those are a lot of fun, or like they're just very very deep, I think, and they're an absolute delight to use. Number 6, preferred tarot system. Rider Waite Smith. Number 7, tarot rituals. I had to think about this one a little bit. Like, I think I recognize that I do things very tacitly, and so a lot of the things that one would probably think of as rituals, I guess I didn't think of them as that very much. But whenever I'm getting ready for a tarot reading for myself, I will like clean up my study space, because there are lots of books and notes and other stuff that's going on, and I want to be comfortable. So I clear up my space and I get my journal ready, whether it be a physical one or my digital one on my tablet, and I'll usually grab a drink, generally just water. I tend to read at night, so I don't like to have any caffeine in my system by that point, because then I'll never get to sleep. So yeah, I'll have like water or a sparkling water or herbal tea or something. I do want to share that whenever I get like a pre-owned deck or any kind of deck that comes in out of order, I actually really enjoy that, because I get to sort of untangle the deck, if that makes any sense. It might be like one of the most spiritual things that I'll ever say, because again, I'm kind of a secular reader, but I do like to reset the deck's energy, if that makes any sense. That way I can sort of look through the cards, and I'm already kind of getting to know them as I'm putting them back together. So that's a lot of fun, and I recognize that in some ways is kind of a ritual. Prompt number 8, how do you use tarot? For the most part, I do use it as kind of a journaling method. I suppose introspection is a good way to think of it, because that was like one of the example answers that he gave. I'm really bad at just sort of putting words to my feelings sometimes, but tarot gives me an opportunity to not only try to put words to those feelings, but also consider perspectives that I didn't think of beforehand. If there's like any particular situation that I'm feeling odd about, or if there's like a really good feeling that, and I don't really know why I'm feeling really good. I know that's super weird, but yeah, I guess I use tarot as like my emotional compass to a certain extent, and it's really helped me be able to express my feelings in a way that makes more sense to me. Prompt number 9. Your significator card and why it represents you. I'm going to go ahead and say Queen of Cups. Queen of Cups is less of a card that represents me per se, more of a card that I aspire to be. Queen of Cups is just, to me, the epitome of being able to produce and express creativity, which is an area that I do lack. And I just enjoy like what that card brings whenever I do see her. Sometimes we want to work with a growth mindset in order to be able to really get to where we want to be. And being upfront with our shortcomings is always a good thing, I think. Provided we don't, self-deprecate ourselves, but that's another talk. Prompt 10, your most expensive tarot acquisition. I can't tell you how many copies of this deck I have. This is the 5-cent tarot by Madame Clara. I have 3 copies of this deck in different colors. This is the first edition. The other 2 are second editions. One is graphite and the other one is lavender. I also have 2 copies of the 2-penny oracle. One is round lavender and the other one is the standard copper edge. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even know why I bought this many. I mean, I kind of know why. I think I want to say that I jumped on the second edition because I pre-ordered this first edition, by the way. I just thought it was really cool because it has keywords on it. I guess I can show you, right? I thought it was really cool because it has keywords on it, on the top and the bottom. So if I wanted to do reversals, I could do so without hurting myself. And I just really like this Victorian penny arcade aesthetic. And when the second edition came out, I noticed that the first edition was out of print, and I'm like, well, damn it, I wouldn't want to use the first edition too much until it's completely worn out. And so I got a second copy. I got the graphite edition, and then I'm like, oh no, my graphite edition is actually wearing out. Let me get a lavender one. And I got it alongside the Oops All Lavender 2-penny. So yeah, I can't tell you how much I've spent. I mean, I can make a guess and say maybe around $200, which I'm kind of shocked at myself. Prompt 11, my unicorn deck. Well, the good news is, before the Hexen 2.0, the art book went out of print. I did snag a copy. It was only $30, retail price. Now this thing is floating around on eBay for up to $1,000, and I don't fully get why. Don't get me wrong, I love this. And I mean, it's super awesome. I mean, it's massive too. So for context, the Hexen 2.0 is this cybernetic, conspiracy theory deck by Suzanne Treister. It had 2 editions before it completely went out of print. There was one edition that had come out in, I think, oh my god, I actually have no idea when the first one came out. One edition came out in 2016 to 2017, and it just never got a reprint. And that makes me very sad because this deck is like the entire culmination of my grad program. And I really wanted a copy because I thought it would make an amazing study deck at the time that I was finishing up my grad program. But unfortunately, it was already out of print by then. I actually remember reaching out to Suzanne Treister's contact, and I mean, I was asking for, hey, is there going to be like a reprint? I absolutely love this work. And he's like, yeah, totally. Look out next year on Amazon. And 2020 happened. And so I had a sneaking suspicion that that's probably why we didn't get another reprint. But I mean, it makes me sad that now it's, for some weird reason, like $500 on eBay. I guess technically it's not hard to find. There's almost always at least one listing up on eBay that's selling, or that's trying to sell the deck for like $500, $600, $1,000. And I mean, I guess it's just hard to access is more a proper way to say it. But I'm really hoping that Treister pulls through and does another reprint. I will say on camera that I pledge to purchase $40 worth of the deck. Prompt number 12. What's the most important lesson that tarot has taught you? That, contrary to popular belief, I am not a robot. Prompt number 13. Tarot dinner party guests. 1 guest of honor and 2 other guests. Shockingly, I can't think of any historical figures, and I don't think I would want to talk to historical figures. I'm not sure why, but I think I would prefer folks who are living like now. Honestly, I think my guest of honor would most likely be Havana from Sparkle Divine Tarot. I think I just want to pick her brain a little bit more on oracle decks because I'm slowly but surely getting into oracle decks, and they're a little hard for me to read, but I feel like she would be a really good source to sort of learn from. As for the other 2, I would say one would be Winslow Dumaine, the creator of the Tarot Restless. I just think he seems like a lot of fun, and we could like talk about music. I'm not much of a metalhead, but I do really like a lot of the bands that he listed in his guidebook for the Tarot Restless at the end of it. Other person, I would probably ask Courtney Alexander from Dust to Onyx, because I'm actually in the middle of the research phase for her deck, and I think, I don't know, I think it would be just really awesome to just sort of chat about maybe her sources for that she used for the Dust to Onyx, because the Dust to Onyx is very rich with like a lot of primary and secondary sources, and I would love to get to know her and her process for creating the deck, because it's just a very rich and very accessible deck, actually, but we'll talk about that another time. Okay, so that was all about tarot. That was surprisingly a lot. I know you're probably seeing the cut version of this. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it was a lot of fun to sort of getting to know my tarot journey. There's surprisingly a lot that I did have to say, and really glad at this opportunity to share my experience with you, you know, as always. So if you've done this hashtag, definitely, you know, hit me up in the comments. I'd love to check it out, and hopefully I'll see you guys sooner than later. But thanks a ton for stopping by the study space, and I'll catch you guys another time. Bye.